This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
I'm your host, Dr. John Iskander with CDC's Office of Science, and with me is Dr. Amanda Graham. Amanda is Chief of Innovations at the Truth Initiative. Welcome to our podcast, Amanda.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here.
Please begin by telling us what the Truth Initiative is.
Sure thing. Truth Initiative is the largest nonprofit public health foundation in the U.S. dedicated to making tobacco use a thing of the past, especially among young people. Most people know us for our award-winning Truth campaign, but our work also includes treatment and policy research, youth activism, and the work that I lead in the Innovation Center, providing digital programs for tobacco cessation.
Amanda, today's public health grand rounds focused on key findings from the recently released U.S. Surgeon General's report on smoking cessation. A silver lining in the report was that smoking is at an all-time low in the United States. The bad news is that 34 million adults still smoke and continue to be at risk for developing smoking-related illnesses. What's the trend looking like for young people and high school students?
Yeah, when we began our work 20 years ago, 23% of high school students were smoking. And today that number is under 4%, and that decline is really considered one of the most successful public health efforts in modern history. On the flip side, unfortunately, we've swapped one epidemic for another, with youth e-cigarette use skyrocketing over the past couple of years. What we saw is that between 2017 and 2019, current e-cigarette use more than doubled among high school students, and it tripled among middle school students. And what we know is that today more than 5.3 million kids are using e-cigarettes.
So there's been a decline in cigarette smoking, but an increase in e-cigarette use. So based on the current evidence, what are some of the risks to young people from using e-cigarettes?
The most important thing to understand is that the brain is actually still developing up until about age 25. That's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. Using nicotine during that critical period of development can have long-lasting negative impacts on learning, on memory, on attention, and it can actually increase the risk for future addiction to other drugs. Young people are often captivated by the party tricks that they can do with the aerosol or the vapor that comes out of an e-cigarette, but they don't know that vapor contains harmful substances that end up deep within the lungs, both among the person that's actually vaping and among the people that are around them.
So what type of cessation programs work best for young people, and do they have access to effective treatments?
So for quitting smoking, group counseling and text messaging have shown some encouraging results. But in general, what we've seen from the accumulation of research studies is that there's really no strong evidence that any particular method is effective in helping young people to quit. Research among young people can be challenging. Adherence can often be an issue. And so those are important considerations to be aware of when you're looking at this literature. But we also know that medications like nicotine replacement, bupropion, Chantix, those have also not been shown to be successful with adolescents, and they're currently not recommended. For quitting e-cigarettes, there's actually very little research that has been published. Several early case studies and a report that we actually published last summer showing encouraging results from our text messaging program, This Is Quitting. We're currently running the first randomized trial of a quit vaping program. We've enrolled over 2,600 young adults, and we'll have outcome data this fall and are excited to be contributing to this emerging evidence base.
So what about reaching young people earlier, before they start smoking or vaping in the first place? Are there efforts to prevent them from smoking or vaping?
Yeah, absolutely. Prevention campaigns have been a core component of tobacco control for decades. The Truth campaign that we run at Truth Initiative is one of the longest running and most successful tobacco prevention campaigns. For 20 years, the campaign has used a powerful peer-to-peer messaging approach to encourage young people to reject tobacco, in this case, cigarettes. And our research has actually shown that it's worked. Exposure to the campaign is associated with slowing the progression to established smoking. With the increase in youth vaping, the campaign has actually taken a new tack more recently, essentially harnessing aspects of youth culture and highlighting the deceptive tactics of the tobacco and vaping industries, really with a focus on increasing harm perceptions, denormalizing vaping. This is a behavior that has exploded where kids have the sense that everybody's doing it, and also focused on reducing the appeal of e-cigarettes. As I mentioned, that work is relatively new, but our recent studies have shown that exposure to those anti-vaping campaign messages are significantly shifting key attitudes and beliefs about vaping among young people, which we know is the first step to changing behavior at the population level. And so we'll be tracking that over the course of time.
Very interesting. So peers are very important to teens, as you've stated, but can parents also play a meaningful role in smoking prevention or cessation?
Absolutely. Parents have an important role to play both in terms of prevention and cessation. One of the strongest predictors of whether a young person starts to smoke is whether one or both parents smoke. We run a free tobacco cessation program called Become an X, and we hear very often that that's one of the primary reasons adults are motivated to quit smoking, so that their kids, the kids around them, their grandchildren, don't end up trapped in that same cycle of addiction. It's important for parents, obviously, to recognize what an e-cigarette looks like. There's great information online, and to know how to talk to their child about smoking and about vaping. In terms of cessation, the critical things are to make quitting resources available to young people and not to assume that you can just discipline your kid out of nicotine use.
So where can our listeners learn more about This Is Quitting and the Truth Initiative?
So young people can enroll in This Is Quitting by texting Ditch Vape, all one word, to 88709. And information about Truth Initiative, including our other digital cessation resources, is available at our website, which is truthinitiative.org.
So, Amanda, as you know, CDC is a science-based, data-driven agency. We like to close our segment with CDC's numbers game. What's your number, Amanda?
I love this piece. We also are a data-driven organization. Today, my number is 170,000. Which is the number of young people that have enrolled in This Is Quitting to quit vaping since we launched the program January of 2019. Anyone in public health knows how challenging it is to get the attention of young people, let alone to get them to take action when it comes to health behavior change. And so this number really tells us that scores of young people want to quit vaping and that our program is making a real difference.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Please join us next time for our Beyond the Data podcast.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Data. Please join us next time. Be sure to visit the Public Health Grand Rounds website at cdc.gov/grand-rounds and sign up for our mailing list. If you have questions, please email us at grandrounds@cdc.gov.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.